Okay, welcome to tonight's Road to Recovery webinar with Choose Recovery Services. We're so happy that you joined us, and I am Hali Roderick, and I'm the facilitator host of this webinar. And tonight, Amy Woolsey, one of our coaches at Choose Recovery Services, is joining me. And if some of you may be familiar, she is the co-host of the Choose to Be podcast with Alana Gordon. She also has her own podcast called The Empowered Divorce. Um, Amy does so many cool things that I probably can't even hit all of the things that she does. But Amy is a very skilled brain spotting practitioner. She runs a coaching course. What do you call it? A coaching group, which is called what? Remind me, Amy.
Believing in you.
Believing in you. Yeah. Amy is just, she does a lot of really cool things. So I'm going to stop talking, and Amy, I'm going to let you share. Well, before I let you share, let me do the announcements first, okay? I'm going to put the link to the announcements that we have going on at Choose Recovery Services. And in this link, you will find everything, many of the cool things that we have going on at Choose Recovery. We have intensives happening, I think monthly, going on right now. In a couple of weeks on the 22nd, 10 days, I guess, we have our next women's somatic healing intensive happening. And Laura Fisher, myself, and Alana Gordon are facilitating that one. There's still a couple of spots in that one if you are looking for some somatic healing, which is partially what we're going to talk about tonight. That would be a good resource for if you're a woman who's in the healing process. Amy's going to talk a little bit more about hers, but she has a brain spotting intensive coming up in March.
April.
April. Okay, April. We have a couples intensive happening in Arizona in March, which I'm super excited about. Alana and I are running that one here in Arizona, so that one's going to be good as well. But there's men's intensives that are happening. So many great things going on. There's links to all the podcasts that are associated with Choose Recovery Services. You can find bios of all of our coaches and therapists and information on all of the courses and groups that we offer. So please explore around on that announcement sheet. There's lots of good stuff there. And then I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute, Amy, so you can introduce yourself a little bit more and share more of what you want our audience to know.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be here. And it is, I know this has always been webinar style, but I was telling Hallie, I like faces. So I'm just going to try really hard to imagine all of your beautiful faces. I do so much better because I'm just, yeah, I like getting people in front of me and getting the energy and feeling all of that. So I'm going to do my best to try and imagine all of your energy and those of you that are joining us. So I am glad to be here. I do a lot of things. I like to have my hand in a lot of different modalities, a lot of different experiences. I feel like I've experienced a lot personally in my journey in my life. And so when I find something that works, or I find a tool or a concept that has helped me and has helped clients, I want to make a thing of it. So I like doing lots of things. I am a certified brain spotting practitioner, and that has been an incredible addition to my work. Certified APSATs, I think, and so many other things, certified deconstructing gaslighting with Sarah Morales. A lot of cool things that I feel have really added to the work that I do with clients. I work with both mainly female betrayed partners, but I do work with male betrayed partners. I do couples work when couples are in, I'm going to say phase 3, if that's like the reintegration of the relationship, where we really focus on the levels of intimacy and cultivating healthy intimacy back into a relationship in a whole new way. It's one of my favorite things to do. And trying to think what else. I don't know. I like doing things. One thing I will clear up, those that know me or hear about me sometimes, because divorce is part of my story and my journey, even though I am remarried, divorce is a big part of my experience. Sometimes people think that they work with me. I'm leading people to divorce. And so sometimes I like to clear that up as well, especially in settings like this, where a lot of times couples are coming. And so it is my job is to always meet a client where they are at. It's never my job to push a client into a direction. My experience, I think, truly adds to my ability to help those, especially those that might be in a should I stay or should I go stuck point. Again, not to guide them out, but to help them, anybody I work with, find their own answer, because I really do believe that every single one of us have what we need to heal and have the answers that we need to take that next right step just right now. And one of the things that I feel has really helped to do that is adding somatic work to the healing journey. And that's what Hali and I want to talk about tonight, because it gets missed. And in fact, Hali, our question that, came in, I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is the answer.
Yeah. Yep. So we do see the question, which maybe I'll just throw that out there so you can see how we're going to get around to the answer of this. My intrusive thoughts will not go away. So we're going to talk about, like Amie mentioned, the somatic healing part of this. And as Amie and I were talking about what we wanted to talk about tonight, we both are super passionate about this. We're both brain spotting practitioners. We both have done a lot of somatic healing. We continue to add more skills and tools to our professional tool belt so we can help clients along the way with the somatic healing part of things. And I will just say for myself that in my own healing journey, when my therapist and my coach were telling me, you need to do some body work, you need to do some somatic healing, it was kind of a foreign concept to me. And I was actually really resistant to it because I kept thinking, that's not going to do anything. Like, that's not going to help me. I don't see how that can help me. And then once I finally just trusted and said, okay, let me try this. Everybody keeps telling me I need to do this. Let me try some of this stuff. And really the first thing I did was like just a yoga class. And I'll tell you that I walked into the yoga studio and I started doing yoga. And it was it's still to this day, I have a monkey mind. Like I have a lot of boxes open in my head all the time. And when I go to yoga, I was able to get out of my head and into my body. And it was literally like a physical relief. I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about. Okay, it makes sense to me now. And yoga is just one small piece of one thing you can do for somatic healing. But anyway, that's kind of was my experience. And now I am super passionate about it because it has been so impactful for me. So Amie, let me throw it back to you and you kind of set us up for what we're going to talk about today. And maybe if you want to share how you got into more of this somatic healing stuff.
Yeah, well, like you, just yoga's always been something that I've done throughout my life, honestly, and it's been so beneficial to me. But it wasn't until my therapist, who I've been with forever, started to explore some of this in her own journey, and then start to incorporate it in her practice. And then she just is like, "Hey, I'm going to try this out on you." So I think because I've been with her for so long, she's like, "You're just going to do this, okay?" So she started actually implementing some different modalities to get in the body. And what I have learned is that our bodies hold, like, we have a second brain. We have this brain that is in our skull, and then we have a second brain, the brain in our body. And when we experience trauma, our body holds on to that. There's also shock residue that gets stuck in the body. So there's lots of different modalities. One of the Alexander method, Frank Corrigan's the neuro nerd behind a lot of these modalities, actually. But I love that we are learning more and more about the body and what it can do. An old book, it's been around forever, that I think really kicked it off, is The Body Keeps a Score. I'm sure many of you have heard that. If you have not read it, it's a heavy read, but I think it can help you understand a little bit deeper what we're talking about today. And you can Google Frank Corrigan, and he's on YouTube all over. He's a scientist. He's a nerd. He's boring. But if you're interested in that kind of stuff, then look him up. because he's really helping us see the connection between the brain and then our body brain.
Can
So
I say one, can I say one thing too that's coming to my mind, and I want to preface this with our audience because we can't see people. So I don't know if we have husbands and wives here, but I'm assuming we have some couples here. And since you and I are women and we work a lot with betrayed partners, we do both work with men, but I want to just preface that this is not just something that women who or men who have experienced betrayal trauma need. The one who has the person that's seeking recovery also can really benefit from this. So I just want to preface that. So if you're here and you're thinking, oh, this isn't for me, I'm going to check out, I would
yeah,
just invite
no,
you to stay with us because this is for everybody, but everyone in this realm of healing, no matter which side you're on, can benefit from this. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to just kind of get out in front of that.
no, I'm glad you did. And I'm going to share a couple things why on both sides, how somatic work and brain spotting particularly can help you. But I'll just back it up to explaining trauma. I mean, the trauma comes, originates from the Greek word wound. And we as humans will be wounded along our journey in life. I personally don't believe that we can outsmart it, outrun it, avoid it, or even outrighteous it. We will experience to some degree or another trauma, often at our hand to others and others, hand to us. We also know that trauma can be generational because research in epigenetics shows that traumatic experience can cause changes in gene expression that can be passed down through generations because it's essentially remembering the trauma through those biological mechanisms. It's fascinating research. So either way, we as humans in our body are absorbing trauma one way or another. So I like that you pointed that out. I want every human, like this is one of my missions in life, like every human, like please look at it. This is where, if we don't, this is where autoimmune disease, chronic pain and illness, even cancer has all been linked to unresolved trauma. Now, on the flip side, there's the word healing, which the old English root of is to make whole. And so at its core, healing is about restoring wholeness, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And that's why I love dipping my hand into so many different things, because I do see so much value in holistic healing where we're touching on all different parts of us. Healing isn't just possible. It really is about bringing all the pieces of ourselves back together when trauma has disconnected us. And so whether you're on the betrayed side or the betrayer side, we're disconnected and we need to get that put back together, so to speak.
Mhm.
I want to preface though, healing does not mean erasing what's happened. So those of you who are here feeling maybe raw around betrayal and what's happened, I also don't ever want to give the idea that healing is going to erase what happened. It lessens the activation that you might be feeling around what's happened. When I say activation, like the tightness in your chest or in your throat, back of your neck, or the nausea in your stomach. If I were to say to you 0 to 10, how intense is that right now? And you're like, it's a freaking 9. Doing this type of somatic work can help reduce that. We're always going to remember. It's why there's no such thing as forgive and forget. Hate that term.
Mhm.
We will remember, but the physical pain when we remember can lessen. So kind of goes to this question, intrusive thoughts will not go away. Brain spotting is one of those modalities that can help get into the deep part of the brain and into the parts of the body that hold on to it. And we need to process it. We can do a lot of work up here in therapy where we're trying to reframe, think about something differently or not think, which with this question, that's what I thought it was when I had intrusive thoughts or ruminating thoughts. I would just lay there in bed at night, just going, okay, just stop thinking about it, Amy. Just stop thinking about it. I'd put on music or try and listen to something just to make myself stop thinking about it. And to this person's point, like I couldn't, like, why? What's wrong? And I would say, what's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. There was another level of healing that needed to happen. And this is the next level that needs to happen.
Yeah. On that note, do you want to explain a little bit for our audience about brain spotting? Because it is unfamiliar to some people, and people have heard about maybe EMDR or accelerated resolution therapy or other trauma modalities, but brain spotting may be a new concept or term to people. So I'd love to have
Yeah.
you explain what that is for people that don't know.
Yeah. So I'll try and explain it in a way that the easiest way that I can conceptualize it. So it's brain spotting is utilizing eye positions in your visual field to locate and access and then dismantle or discharge all of that stuck material that's held in the brain and the body. And so the eyes are an extension of the brain. And so when you are looking at someone's eyes, you're essentially looking into their brain and the part of their brain that meets the world. The eyes are connected to the subcortex, which is the midbrain, which this is the site of trauma. This is emotions. This is survival responses. So your fight, flight, freeze, that's all the mid part of your brain, your subcortex, memories. You know, I had a lot of lost memory, brain fog. You might hear that term in your journey. So all of that gets stuck there when we experience trauma, we can access it through the optic nerve. The brain, um, the brain denotes a lot of energy to the eyes in visually scanning. Like we're always scanning with our eyes. The phrase, so to speak, that we say in brain spotting is what you see is what you feel, because of that optic nerve and what it leads to. So, for example, if have you ever lost a thought and noticed you were just staring off into space, like your brain was going, and then you're like, you kind of just go off in left field, and you kind of have to come out of it, or you notice when that happens, your eyes hit a brain spot and it went to a different part of your brain. You were talking, which is this part, and then all of a sudden it maybe remembered something traumatic and it jumped. And so that's a lot of times when we have those staring off into space moments, we're actually in a brain spot, which is kind of cool. But the phenomenon is in the brain holding the eye position to orient, locate, and process information. And so the spot that you were gazing at is the access point, if that makes sense. That's where all the neural networks are holding all the information. And so we can help get into that deep part of the brain by bypassing your neocortex.
So I just put a link to Amy's website. She has a ton of great resources on brain spotting on her website, so,
Thank you.
including some videos and stuff if you want to learn more about it
Yeah.
after tonight.
Scroll all the way down to the, I mean, I have some stuff on there, but if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's some good videos that I threw up there. So yeah, thank you.
So can you explain a little bit? So let's just take this first question that came in. My intrusive thoughts will not go away. So can you explain to a client who's having those intrusive thoughts what you might do with them to support them through that in a brain spotting, using brain spotting?
Yeah. So what's really cool about brain spotting, and the reason why I like this modality, even over EMDR, is that it's very much client led. So my client can come in with an intention, like the intrusive thoughts, and all too often, what I notice, like maybe they're having intrusive thoughts about what their partner did to create harm. And oftentimes, when we find the brain spot and we get into that subcortical part of the brain, another activation comes up, a memory that often seems non-related, but it's related. Right? You brain spot too, so you know how this works. And And that's often why this is so beneficial, is because there's usually something underneath, and then there's something underneath, right? We're like digging into the layers of trauma. So
Yep.
I don't like to give expectations going into a brain spot, because the brain and the body, this is one thing, oh my gosh, if I have learned anything through my own experience in healing and doing this with clients so many times, I know that the brain and body know what to heal and when. It really is a matter of, like you said, Hallie, kind of trusting. Like you said, you kind of had to just get to that place where you're like, all right, I mean, doesn't really make sense, or I'm feeling kind of resistant, but I'm going to go for it. Leaning in and kind of trusting that the body and the brain do know how to hold
Mm.
you and what it's ready to give you in terms of information. My best example is years and years and years ago, when I started working with my therapist. Oh my gosh, like 8 years ago. I reached out to her and I said, okay, I'm ready to heal this sexual abuse. And she was like, okay. And so we start the journey. My brain and body were not ready to tackle that particular trauma for me until 2 years ago. And I don't say that to discount like healing or discourage anybody. What I learned is that there were all those layers I was talking about that my brain and body needed me to see first.
Yeah.
It was hard because I remember there were several times I'd be like to my therapist, like I go, okay, this is what I want to heal. Like, why aren't we getting here? And again, it goes to that just trusting the process and trusting my body. Sometimes when we have really big, intense, heavy things to process, it's not ready. There needs to be enough safety. Like what I know from my own journey is that all the things that my brain and body wanted me to touch on first gave this other part, my sexual abuse part, enough safety, and knew that it could trust me because I had been doing all of this work to go there, because that was crappy. I'm going to keep
Mm.
it clean. That was really, really crappy. And so this part of me was like, well, I'm not going to jump into that just yet. I don't think you can handle this, right? In layman's terms. So that's been my experience. And I see that happen with my clients too. So sometimes you'll go in or you'll schedule something, like, I want to tackle this. And you go through a brain spot with me, and it's like something you didn't even expect. Doesn't mean it didn't work. It means your body knows exactly what and when to heal.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to come back to something you said a minute ago about not putting expectations on any brain spotting session or trauma modality, any somatic healing thing that you do. Like, don't put any expectations on it, and just trust that your brain and your body know what they need to do. I don't know if you see this with your clients that are new to brain spotting, but sometimes there's resistance because it's different. Like it's different than sitting there just talking like we're talking now, and it's different, and you're
Yeah.
kind of trying to put yourself in a position so that your brain can go where it needs to go. And there's sometimes resistance for people that are new. And as soon as we can push through that resistance, it's like something little shifts, and it's like, oh wow, I didn't know that's where this was going to go, or I wasn't expecting that to come up. And so just not having any expectations about what it's supposed to look like or not supposed to look like, and just trusting the process is probably one of the things that I talk with most about my clients who are new to brain spotting. Is just there's no right way, there's no wrong way, there's not anything that is supposed to happen or not supposed to happen. It's
Yeah.
just trusting that your body and your brain are going to go where it needs to move into the next phase of healing. And in your so from the 8 years ago, or if we are using that number from when you started working with your therapist till 2 years ago, in that 6 years, there was a lot of other healing that was happening that was ready, which I don't want to discourage anyone from thinking that it's going to take you 8 years to heal from what you've got going on.
So I had something very specific. It was pretty intense, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, no discouraging it. My point is that what I wanted at the time, my body's like, we ain't ready, lady.
Yeah.
And so it is trusting the process. And so when you hear you know, as say as professionals, like trust the body or get in the body, like this, it is a process and it is layers.
Mhm.
And that's why I personally favor brain spotting, because I feel like it allows that level of safety where we're not forcing something, which
Yeah.
I remember a trainer in brain spotting described EMDR as like forcing someone to give you a hug and brain spotting is holding your hand. And I kind of
Mm.
like that explanation. Not that EMDR is wrong. It can feel a little bit more forceful,
Yeah.
where brain spotting really is very much client led. There's another question that came in, Hallie, if it's okay. I kind of want to
Yeah.
lead into this because um with intrusive thoughts, um and this next question I guess I'll just read it. When I
Sure.
have intrusive thoughts and triggers, is it helpful or harmful for me to share, for you to share with your husband? I want him to know and see what I'm going through. At the same time, I can see how it might not be helpful to keep bringing things up all the time. I first just want to validate why we want that partner to see and know, like, this is what I'm going through and I am experiencing because of your behaviors. So want to validate that. I I'll just answer, and then Hallie, I'm sure you have a really fantastic answer. I think my first thought when I read that was, this is why doing your own work first can be really beneficial. I would say get to know your own intrusive thoughts and the layers underneath that first. And if at that point you feel it's helpful to share, I would I always encourage clients on both sides to seek permission first when you're entering a conversation like that, where we're sharing really deep thoughts and feelings and experiences. So let's say, um, whoever wrote this question, and any of you who are like, yeah, what do I do here? Um, I would say get to a place where you can look at these more deeply yourself and what's coming up for you with these intrusive thoughts, and even why it's so important for them, your partner, to see it. It might be erring on the side of, I need them to see it in order for me to feel differently. And that's why I'm like, okay, let's do your stuff first, because it won't be helpful if we're expressing these intrusive thoughts and all of these emotions, thinking and that will make us feel better here. That's a little backwards. So that's why I'm suggesting that, but not saying don't do it. I do see that there's times when that can be beneficial, whether that's with a scheduled check-in that you've set up. But for both sides, if you're going to share hard thoughts, feelings, experiences, please give an invitation to that person to invite them into that conversation, so that we're both a little bit more in that window of tolerance.
Yeah. My um my thoughts on that too. My brain just got sidetracked. What would an invitation sound like, Amy? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, yeah. So with this one, it's, hey, I'm having a lot of intrusive thoughts and they're causing a lot of emotions. I've been working on this with my, person. And I feel like it would be helpful for you to hear this. What I'm needing from this conversation is to be heard and to be seen in my pain. Is there a time that you're open for that conversation?
Okay, I love that. And that kind of feeds into where my thoughts went with this question is kind of what you said, but in my language, it's like check your expectation. Like, are you hoping for a certain outcome with
Yeah.
that, or for something to change with that? And it also makes me go back to what we were talking about in the beginning of why it's important for both people to do their deeper healing. And because if you bring these intrusive thoughts or share your triggers and your spouse is not in a place to have empathy or hold space for that, and they turn to defensive mode, or they turn to shame or victim, or they turn it back on you, to me, that's evidence that they need to do some deeper healing work, which why this is so important for both of them, because they're not in a space to be able to hold that for you. And so if you because I know clients who like they just feel like I have to do it and they continue to share and share and then they keep getting shut down or the defense and all this keeps coming up. You're actually walking away feeling more hurt than
Mhm.
you were before because of the invalidation of the response. And so I would say check your expectation and your reasoning. And I love Amy's suggestion of processing through what is it, what is coming up, what's underneath it, why, what am I hoping for from this? And if you're the person seeking recovery and you're not able to hold that space when your spouse brings triggers or challenges to you, that to me would be an indicator that there needs to be some deeper work on your end so that it isn't because my thoughts are that that's triggering some sort of shame response or shame is really the word that comes to my mind if you're not able to hold that space. So that's where my thoughts went on it.
Which is what brain spotting can help you do, right? So for the betrayer, that's a deeper, deep subcortical work can do is help get to those rooted layers um, of shame and guilt. It can help with the emotional avoidance if we're avoiding engaging with our partner. Um, it can help with impulse control. It can help with developing empathy,
Mhm.
um, pattern recognition. So all of those are just a few of the things that I've seen it do to help my partners that did the betraying. And with the betrayer, it helps with intrusive thoughts, the hypervigilance, the hyperarousal, the emotional numbing. When you are in that dissociative, disconnected, like sometimes I'll say to my client, like, what do you know is seeing in your body? And it's just like, my what?
Mhm.
I don't, do I have a body? That's that place where you're very disconnected, which rightly so. Brain spotting can help you, trust issues, self-esteem. Those are just a few of the symptoms on each side that somatic work like brain spotting can help with.
Mhm. And this is not really gender specific, but I was thinking in my Help Her Heal groups, we talk a lot about like what are they feeling and where are they noticing it in their body. And a lot of times, just that is a really foreign concept. First of all, identifying your emotions, and second of all, noticing where it's showing up in your body. But that's not just men. Women also sometimes have a really hard time, like recognizing what is somatically happening or what's the physiological response that your body is having when you're
Yeah.
activated by something. And it's a
Yeah.
skill, or I don't know if it's skill the right word, but you can develop that
The
awareness.
practice.
Yeah.
You have to just like you literally have to practice. My husband Scott literally just today because I told him that I was heading down my journey of becoming a Reiki master. And I was like, okay, so you're going to be my guinea pig, and he's like, oh, I'm not good at this. And I was like, honey, it's a practice.
Yeah.
It really is. It's not like, I mean, Hallie and I have been doing this forever, and she and I both can testify. Like, we didn't, that how quick I can get in my body now, 10 years ago, heck no. So I know that it's possible. I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it, first of all,
Mhm.
but I know it's possible. It does take practice, and it's always practice, right, Hallie? Like, um, I feel like the moment I stop practicing, it all goes to default. Just like
Mhm.
I stop dyeing my hair, it goes back to gray.
Yep.
Got to keep it
So
up.
that makes me think of I'm the same way. I was one of those people that when I first saw an emotion wheel, I was like, what the heck is that? Because I can tell you when I'm happy or mad, but that was it. And then like understanding what was underneath those was really like light bulb moments for me going, oh, it makes sense that I'm angry because of this. And so really like identifying those things is new for a lot of people. And I used to be right there too. But to that concept of it's a practice, um, I I constantly think of Viktor Frankl's I've got to create the space between the something about in between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies your freedom and your power to choose.
Yes.
Because when we are activated or triggered by something, often we have an automatic reaction rather than a value-based choice response that we're choosing. And so the practice part of it is like I can read about that all day long. Okay, I need to create some space between the stimulus and the response, and I can think that I'm going to do it next time I'm activated. But if I'm not practicing like getting into my body and noticing what's coming up for me when I'm not activated, I have very little chance of being able to access that when I am activated. And
Yeah.
so the reason when people call it a practice, it's literally because we're practicing it. It's more of like I just live life differently. My mom's here visiting and she came into my office and I have a little like Zen corner over there and I was meditating and had some stuff going on. Somewhere she goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm meditating." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry I interrupted you." But I'm like, I literally do it. Like
Yeah.
I get into my body and I slow down and I practice paying attention to what my body is, the messages my body are trying to tell me. Sometimes it's
This is how you get to the root of what, like, so many of you are trying to find answers to healing, answers to recovery on both sides. And this is how you find the answers. We have to slow it down enough. And if you're not, like what Hallie is saying, if you're in that space where you're like, get in my body, I don't know when I get in my body, or I'm mad, happy, and sad. If you're in that space and slowing down really does feel impossible, like I get it 100%. Slow was not in my DNA. I had to like push it in there. Um, this is why working with a professional and someone who is trained in this way is helpful, because it will, like, I help my clients practice who are in this space. And how I love that you brought up the feelings, the emotions wheel, and how important it is to name what is happening somatically. When I say that, like if you notice tightening in your chest, I want to encourage you to describe it in more detail. For example, hot, cold, warm, fast, slow. If it had a color, what color do you think it would be? Does it have a texture? Is it spinny, stabby, sharp? Just feels like a tart, tight rock? Describe it. That will help, like just answering those questions that I just said right there, you will be in your body, what we're
Mhm.
saying here. So my name is, you can say Amie, but as you may notice, it's Amie. All growing up, I got called Annie because this is French. It's a way of spelling. No one spelled their name. It was always Amy, right? So I always got called Annie. Now, no offense against Annie's, but that's not my name. So I would always get really, really mad when people wouldn't call me by my name. I find our emotions are kind of the same way. I had a client last week and we were going through this and she just kept saying, "Well, I'm just angry. I'm angry." So we pull up the wheel and we looked at all the things and I said, "Okay, I'm going to read a bunch of the um, different names that come with anger. And I want you to," we found it in her body. And I said, "And I want you to put your hand over it. And when I read off the name, if this in your body matches, I want you to tell me." And we found out that it was frustration. Once we found frustration, it led us to sad. When we found sad, it led us to grief. When we found grief, we found alone. When we found alone, we found
Yeah. Yes. I love that. And when you're doing that work, you're what I call out of your head and in your body. And you're listening to what your body is telling you because honestly, our brains, the thoughts that are going on in our head are not always based in reality of this moment. They could be back in a traumatic event, whether it be this betrayal or something previous in your life or something connected to that. And so when we get in the state of fight, flight, or freeze, it's important to be able to slow down, create the space to go, okay, hold on a minute. Let me orient myself to this present moment. Let me check in with my body. Let me see what's happening. Let me like look at what my eyes are actually seeing and let me make some sense of this. And we do that by checking in with our body and slowing down those intrusive thoughts or the thoughts that come when we're activated by something and really getting present in our bodies. And the more you do that when you're not in an activated state by getting familiar and comfortable with your body, the more space you're going to be able to create when you are activated. And the less impact those triggers are going to have on you, because you can't make them stop, like they won't go away, but you will be able to process them in a different way. You'll be able to manage whatever comes up with you. You'll move through it with ease
Yeah.
more quickly. And it's a beautiful thing when both people are doing this work, because then they can hold space for each other. When they are activated, they can support each other through it. They can say, hey, this is what's coming up for me. The other one, if they're able to hold their own grounded state, they can kind of help co-regulate. And so it's a beautiful thing when both parties are doing this deeper level of work. And that's where I think you really can feel a shift in your healing process when you're both doing this work.
Yep. Yep.
I want to pause for just a second and just remind anybody that jumped on after our announcement that if you have questions, Amie and I could talk all day and all night about this stuff. So just so if you
Oh,
can't tell,
really?
we're a
Really?
little passionate about it. We might have talked about it for an hour or two earlier this weekend. So but we do want to get to your questions. So feel free to add more questions, or if you those ones that we talked about already, if you have more clarifying things, please put them in the Q&A. So like I said, I just wanted to pause to say that, because Amie and I could go on forever about this, but we really want to get to questions from you that are relevant to what you have going on. On that practice thing, one thing I'm I'm gonna just give a plug for our intensives that we have coming up, because I don't know about you, Amie, too, but I'm like, sounds good, but I don't really know what that is. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know how to practice. I don't know what that means. And at our intensives are not just you sitting at a table or sitting out in an audience listening to somebody talk all day. Our intensives are experiential. And so you're going to get opportunities to experience what Amie and I are talking about, particularly at the upcoming somatic healing event that starts on the 22nd of this month, and then in Amy's brain spotting intensive coming up in March, April.
April.
Why do I have March in my mind? I keep saying March. April. Both of those are going to be very experiential in nature. And I haven't been involved in the men's intensives yet, but I think they're doing some of this experiential stuff in the men's intensives as well. So if you don't know what to do, and I love the intensive setup, because I look at doing an intensive as like getting, I don't know, several weeks at the minimum, but months probably worth of work in a short amount of time. So if you're feeling really stuck and you need some extra level of support, Choose makes our intensive super affordable. And I would just encourage you to please come, because this will help you experience what it's like to actually practice some of this stuff that we're talking about that might be foreign.
My brain spotting one is also very much body focused. So like we have brain spot, we'll have a brain spot session that's like extensive deep dive one, not just a regular 50-minute session, but it is very much about getting in different practices to get back in touch with your body and connected back to your body, get to know your body again. So yeah, it's almost like all the excuses that our human brains give us when we're trying to do this in between sessions with our professional. Like, no more excuses. You're sitting here right in front of me and I'm going to have you do it. So yeah, the intensives, I mean, you and I both individually have been in our own intensives with our own healing. And so we can definitely testify to the progress that you can feel when our brain and body are intensely being looked at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay. So while we wait and see if anybody has questions on other topics, there's something that's coming up for me, Amie, as we're talking about this. And I know I have my things, but I'm curious what yours are. So when we're talking about this as a practice, um, I mentioned I meditate quite regularly. And actually, I know that some people are really good at like meditating just on your own. I am not there yet. Like, I still have a big monkey mind. So I use guided meditation, which to me is really impactful. That's one of my almost everyday practices. But what are some other things? Because Yet you really need to do, you need to have a trained professional to do brain spotting, but there's other things that you don't actually need a professional to do some of this work and start to create that space between stimulus and response. So, what are
Mhm.
some of your things that you've found or that you recommend for your clients to do in their practice of getting into their body that are beneficial?
So I always have my, such a good question. I always have my clients start off with printing that feelings wheel out,
Hmm.
like multiple copies. Um, put it on your fridge, put it in a different place. You're like, Here's mine right here."
I got several and they're laminated and they're around my house.
Right? Yes.
Everybody
And if you have children, include them in this. Honestly, this is
Yes.
one of the best, y'all, it's one of the best things that my therapist told me 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, it wasn't a wheel back then, it was just like a whole list of them, but I printed a copy off and put it on our dinner table. And it was after I was single when I started doing this. And at the dinner table, I just passed, this is where we started. I passed the paper around with all the emotions. I had my kids pick out three, like, what three things, emotions did you feel today? And I didn't ask any, I said, no questions asked. We just started there, no digging. And they just named it. I wanted them to get used to just looking at all the different emotions. So I would say start there for yourself too. Print the
Hmm.
wheels out. My clients will pull it up on their phone and take a screenshot, and it'll be their screensaver, so they can pull it up. Get to know all the names of the emotions. Then the next is, when you are feeling something, noticing something in your body, stop, slow down. What is happening in my body? Is my jaw clenched? Is something happening in my throat, right? Chest, stomach, shoulders, my hands clenched. Do this when you're driving. Like, now you're not taking any time away. You're driving. Like, just notice your body. So I call these body scans. Start doing body scans. If you're like, I'm going to forget, I know y'all have a smartphone,
Oh, I was just about to put a link to an app. Which app are you going to
but
recommend?
no, I'm just going like, go to your freaking
Oh,
timer. I just put in alarms when I started doing this. I just put in alarms. And so I just set alarms for like 3 times a day. When that alarm went off, it's like, okay, I'm going to look at my body. Just stop. If you pick up kids from school and you're sitting in the carpool lane, body scan.
yep.
If you're going to the bathroom, body scan. I had a sticky note in the back of my bathroom door that said body scan, just to remind me. Is that
Mhm.
TMI? But like, just like, take, when you're already doing something, incorporate a body scan. Now you're not like adding one more thing to do when it feels too much. But I would say just the practice is getting to know the different names of the emotions, body scan, notice what's happening. Now we're going to try and connect. What is this? Look at the feelings wheel, give it its proper name, and
Mhm.
then just say hi.
Yep. Just notice.
High
Just notice.
frustration, high annoyance, high irritation. Like, I'm irritated right now because I told my children to get in the shower before I came into this meeting, and they're not. And it's right here. So just that, just start right there.
So there's an app that actually one of the guys in my Helper Heal group introduced me to, and many of the other guys, and many of them swear by it now. It's called How We Feel. Looks like somebody else uses this too.
Huh?
It will do that for you. Like, it sends you, you can set it up to set you so many reminders. And I think it gives you like examples of things you might be feeling. But it's been helpful for many of them to just start to notice what they're feeling at different times. So you can set it, at different times just to go, okay, hold on just a second. And it doesn't have to be even a minute, like just a quick little, like, okay, pause. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm noticing. Okay, note taken, so you can do
Yeah.
it quickly.
Yep. I love it.
Um, Also, if you want to get, yeah, and the feeling was, if you want to get more into exploring, like in an exploratory way, like Amy was talking about, give it more language, colors and more descriptive words. I find writing about it is helpful. Like, maybe at the end of the day, you take your feelings wheel, or anytime, whatever time your self-care is happening, you take the feelings wheel and you identify what three emotions that you felt that day, and then you write descriptively about what those were. So writing can help kind of solidify it a little, make more awareness around it. I
Mhm.
also do a lot of things like, when if I'm drinking a hot drink in the morning or whatever, I like try to notice what it feels like in my mouth. I'll decipher the different flavors that are coming through, and then I try to feel as I notice it as I swallow it. Can I feel it go all the way down? So eating in a mindful way, um,
Yeah.
and also like if I'm exercising, like noticing if my quads are on fire, if I'm doing a leg workout or whatever, and just like notice what that feels like. And I went on a really hard hike a couple weeks ago. My heart was just pounding, my legs were burning, and I was like, man, it feels good to be alive. My heart is doing this, my legs are burning, and it feels good, but I was trying to really get into my body. So you can do it anywhere, no matter what you're doing. Um, but there's a few just examples. I actually
Just
have a
breathing, just noticing your breath. If you're feeling like you're in a trauma response or having a trigger, just start noticing your breath. So belly is expanding, chest rise, ribs expand, drop.
Mhm,
Chest, belly expands, chest rise, rib expand, drop. If you just focus on the breath for like 4 rounds, present moment, present moment, present moment, naming or activating 5 senses. What am I, touching, touch, taste, like you said, just what is it in my mouth, naming colors around the room. I would do that when I'm driving all the time. If I felt triggered, I'd just start naming colors, although I was in Arizona, so it was like brown, dark brown, light brown, but just name colors.
what are you talking about? I got like pink and orange in my backyard.
All green, we have green. But when you activate your 5 senses, that helps bring you back to the present moment, and also you're becoming more aware of you. So those are just little tricks that can help.
Yeah. I want to get to this other question that just came in. I think it's relevant to what we're talking about today.
Mm,
We talked a little bit, I think we did the top one, how to get into your body. And if your spouse isn't doing therapy, that's not anything that you can control. But if you're here and you're in this on either side, I recommend that you get some support just to even understand if you feel like you're in a good place to kind of help hold space for what your spouse might be going through. Um, it will help you move through more. I hate to use the word quickly with this journey, but it will help you move through more effortlessly if you're both getting support. This other question, how do I hold place for how he feels after what he has done? I'm really struggling with this.
mm, mhm, mhm.
So, what are your thoughts about that, Amy?
My first question is get more curious about what the struggle there is for you. First, what is that bringing up? What other layers do we need to look at? Um, there's something there, and it's not wrong. It's not bad. It doesn't, I'm not going to say you're doing something wrong, that you're struggling with this. It's information.
Mhm,
Emotions are information. And so if we're struggling, what's the struggle? What is
mhm.
that part of you struggling with specifically? And let's look at that a little bit deeper. So that's something that would be so beneficial to bring it to your professional,
Yeah.
and slow down, so like I would have you bring up the last experience that you were struggling with this, and we would slow that whole thing down, and I would help you get in your body and notice what your body was doing in that moment, what we were thinking, and kind of piece it together. And then we can maybe see what's underneath that layer.
Mhm.
Um,
I also just want to validate this because this is, I would say, pretty common, especially in the early phases of healing in this, is that there's so much pain there that a lot of times we can't see past our own pain to have any empathy for what the other person is dealing with. And
mhm,
so I just want to validate that also that that's hard. It's really hard when you have experienced something as traumatic from as this from someone that you thought you could trust. And so it's difficult. And I also want to just offer hope, like what Amy was saying. It is possible to move to a place where you can have more empathy for what they're going through, and it requires you to do your own work first.
Yes, because my next thought to this question as I'm looking at it again is I would want to know where this couple is in their
Yeah.
journey. So AppSats has a model that we go off of in the healing modality or model, phase one, phase two, phase three. And so there's specific things that we're looking for and doing and not doing in different phases. And so depending on where y'all are at in the journey, would also determine how this question gets answered, to be honest. Because if you're in, let's say, phase one, things are raw, you just had a discovery or disclosure, and you're being asked or feeling like responsible or required to sit and listen to his emotions where you just had a discovery, that's not the time. So we would need to tweak some of that stuff. So that's also coming up for me too, is I would need to explore the phase that this particular couple is in.
Yeah. And where both parties are at in their healing and what the dynamic is that's going on. So
Yeah.
hopefully you have a trusted professional that has absence training and some sort of training that can help you dig through that. If not, I would definitely encourage you to seek that out because it's a valid question. It is, I can hear the pain underneath it. And um yeah, I can just feel what's, going on with that question. And there is hope. You can move through to a different phase and where there's empathy coming from both of you, but it's really difficult to access in the early phases. So doing some more deeper work so that you actually have the capacity to do that is important.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, we are so grateful that all of you decided to spend an hour with us tonight. I hope that some of this information that you received tonight is beneficial. And if nothing else, it just opens your mind to the possibility that there is something else. Because I am the first one to say that it's valuable and it's important to be able to verbally process what's going on. It's needed. And there's more to healing than just talking about it. And you will move to a next level of healing when you can step into this deeper level of healing. And yes, there is a replay. It will come out tomorrow. And I'll ask the office to put the links to everything that we referenced today on there, the How We Feel app and Amy's website, so you can learn more about brain spotting. Um, I actually don't have my website in such good working order as yours, Amy. So I've said, go read Amy's website. She has a lot of good resources on it about brain spotting. So it's a really great place to learn more about some of this. And again, we would just invite you to consider joining one of our intensives coming up at Choose, because if you want to have somebody guide you into what this looks like and feels like, that's a really good place to do it. And there's something that happens. Healing happens in community. So I know it can feel really kind of scary to show up to an intensive where you probably don't know anybody and maybe you've only known us from podcasts or from stuff like this and you don't know everybody, but there's something that just happens in person that I would encourage you to push through that discomfort and come join us. So, um, Amy, thank you so much for being here with me tonight, for joining me
Thank
and for
you. Thank
love
you.
talking about this stuff. So we
Thanks
hope
for
you
letting
all,
me yap about it.
yeah, it's fun. We could yap all night. So, all right. We appreciate you being here. Look for the follow-up email tomorrow or early this week, and you feel free to reach out to either of us. Our contact information will be on the email in our bios, a way for you to contact us. So have a good night and we'll hopefully see you again next month.
Thanks,
Yeah.
y'all.